for your introduction, distinguished Financial Secretary. And I certainly thank, Ms. Cornelius and Ms. Jeffers for inviting us to have this engagement. And as I said, engagement, it will be a dialogue, not a monologue. And we want to make sure that you feel comfortable enough to engage with us in discussions, even to look critically at our government's performance, to see whether or not we are following the principles of good governance, whether or not we are utilizing the scarce resources of the country effectively for the benefit of the people. And again, nothing that you would have said would be considered to be offensive. We want to have a very active engagement. This is actually economics management and sociology in practice. So consider this engagement as part of the practical application of your studies as we play our little role in helping you to prepare for leadership in the future. I'm pretty sure that a few of you will end up in senior positions in the public sector and private sector in the future. And I also want to suggest that maybe we could engage a broader forum of the entire school. If we can maybe use AUA or some appropriate area where we can accommodate a few hundred of you. Because, the issue of leadership is not limited to those who are studying economics, management, and sociology, even those who are pursuing the sciences. So for example, when I was here, I was a science student. There were probably about 60 of us between first year and second year. And I'm aware that many of my colleagues, they saw the science students as the elite students. Not that I saw myself as an elite, I was just a little rusty dread man then. But the point is, I wish that I had the opportunity to engage back then in subjects like sociology and definitely economics. Because what happened after I left A-levels, I went to work in a bank. I had absolutely no intention of pursuing a career as a banker. In fact, at one point I considered medicine, then it was microbiology, then I wanted to be a chemist. But as I said, banking was not in my future. But at that time, you didn't have the plethora of scholarships that exist today. You had to work and save money to go to university, unless you're extremely bright and would have been the one or two individuals who would have gotten a scholarship to go off to university. And I grew up in the perhaps poorest community, or one of the poorest communities in this country, among the poorest of the poor. So the possibility of raising funds at that time to go to university just did not exist. So I worked at a bank and got promoted pretty fast. By the time I was about 21 years of age, I became a senior supervisor in the bank. By 26, I was promoted into senior management. So I was actually fast-tracked. I was even given a scholarship by the bank to study banking. And that is how I ended up almost fortuitously in banking. So I'm saying that to say that your studies now are very important and would help you, not only in terms of your own self-actualization goals, but possibly in your career that you'll pursue in the future. Even those of you who may want to consider to be engaged in some form of entrepreneurship, understanding issues of economics, even sociology as to how you organize businesses, how you run businesses, how you get the best value out of money, out of scarce resources. Those are very important studies to assist you personally or to assist you in contributing to nation building. So consider yourselves to be the elite students, because ultimately you're the ones who will be equipped with the skills to preside over the effective management of our country, over the leadership of our country. And you would recognize that many of us in government today, we are now maturing in our 50s, 60s, and may have one or two in their 70s. So we're looking forward now to that transition to take place for you within the next few years to join the public sector, the private sector, and to become the leaders within the country, to take our country to the next level of progress and development. We have been speaking about the Renaissance, And the Renaissance is about taking Antigua and Barbuda to the next level of progress and development. Now, the issue of understanding sociology is very important too, because, as a leader, you have to be inclusive. You have to make sure that no one is left behind, and to make sure that the policies that you pursue, that they are egalitarian, that even the poorest among the poor will benefit. So, for example, there are many social programs that exist within the public sector, and they are designed to address the pockets of poverty within the society. Even though we're doing very well, and the Financial Secretary would have spoken about our successes in terms of our fiscal successes, economic successes, the reality is we still have pockets of poverty, and we have to make sure that we take care of the poor and vulnerable. So there's school meals, there's school uniforms. You also have a voucher program in which we provide poor and indigent families with cash grants on a monthly basis. My administration has been doing it for years. We're even giving them lumber now to repair the homes, making sure that no one is left behind, because ultimately we want to transform this country into a lifestyle superpower. We want Antiguans and Barbudans to be among the brightest in the world. And we have to make sure that you're equipped with the educational standing, the educational opportunities, and certainly with the skills in order to compete with the best in the world. Most of you would have heard the phrase that all competition is global. And if all competition is global, then we have to make sure that we equip you with the skills and certainly the educational standing so that you can compete with the best in the world. And that is why we have invested heavily in education. You would be aware that we have invested in a university. This is my administration a few years ago that actually established the university campus, the fourth landed campus of the University of the West Indies. And we will continue to build out that campus and to add additional areas of study. In fact, from the next school year, we will introduce several additional disciplines in agriculture and law. In fact, you'll be able to stay right here and get a law degree. Commencing August of this year, or not August, September, when the school reopens, you will be able to pursue a degree in law. And I'll say those of you doing management and sociology, a good combination there certainly will be law, especially if you become legislators. I mean, having that type of background is very important in terms of becoming a legislator. So we're creating the opportunities for you. In fact, for you, we 5 Islands, from the third quarter of this year, we'll be spending $200 million to expand the campus, to make it bigger and better, to include dorms, additional lecture theaters, to make sure that it is one of the finest university campuses anywhere within this hemisphere. Again, that is our commitment to you. We're doing it for you. I mean, we have seen our best days already, those of us who lead in the country. So we're doing it for you and certainly for your children and your children's children. And I certainly want to implore on each of you to seize the opportunities to upskill. Even at ABCAS, where we recently spent over $25 million to upgrade ABCAS, we want our people to seize the opportunities to upskill, make sure that we have good contractors, good mechanics, individuals who can even export their services beyond the shores of Antigua and Barbuda. At UE, we have a nursing school as well. The whole idea is to become as self-sufficient as possible. Decades ago, an individual who wanted to study law had to go to North America or Europe. Today, you can pursue a law degree here. You don't have to be concerned about chalking up tens of thousands of dollars in debt and to be burdened with a student loan. You don't have to worry about living abroad. Even the whole issue about getting a visa, we should not have to worry about those issues going forward. We want to make sure that as far as practicable, you can be educated here at the tertiary level, and that even the healthcare services that we provide, that they are just as good as any. And our healthcare services continue to be expanded. We just built out a new renal center, which will be open within a matter of weeks. And you'll be able to get a kidney transplant here, those in need of a kidney transplant. We've been doing kidney transplants for years now. You can get hip replacement. You can get knee replacement. We'll be establishing a cardiac unit very shortly, within a matter of months, to make sure that individuals who need stents or to get their stents replaced, that they can get them done here. So you can see that the country is making significant progress by applying the principles of management and economics in a very effective way. The Financial Secretary spoke about our successes in reducing the debt to GDP from 104% when we got in 2014 down to 61% today. The benchmark is 60%. We are at 61. So you can see that we are performing. In fact, all of the macroeconomic indicators, if you look at them, they are better than most countries globally, certainly among the best within the Caribbean. And that is why the United Nations would have ranked Antigua and Barbuda as the #1 country in the Caribbean in terms of human development. So as a small country, we are punching beyond our weight. Now it is important that we continue that momentum and that we have future leaders who are skilled, no matter whichever institution you end up serving, even though I'll admit that the Labour Party is the best institution to serve. You must be equipped so that you can continue along that trajectory to make sure that the growth and development that would have taken place certainly within the last 11, 12 years, that continues. And by the way, it has not always been like this. Even though we only had 1 year of decline because of COVID, as you know, the ships had stopped sailing, the airlines had stopped flying. As a consequence, through no fault of ours, there was a decline in 2020. But other than that, every single year we have grown the country's economy. We expanded the per capita income. We have perhaps the second highest per capita income in the Caribbean today. And if I'm exaggerating, probably about number 3. Our per capita income today is over 22,000 US per head. And it's getting better and better. We're getting wealthier. Our people are getting wealthier. You can see them out of cars on the road. That is not a coincidence. It is also driven by our policy. We have a duty-free policy in which we subsidize the purchase of motor vehicles and even homes. So we have the cabbie. If you're building a private home, you can get all the duties and taxes off of the building material. Similarly, if you're purchasing a motor vehicle, you can get a reduction in the taxes and duty to reduce the cost. And this is a deliberate policy to make sure that these items are affordable and to ensure that people are mobile. Many of you may not know this, but I recall before we came to power that we had a significant amount of rapes taking place at the time. I think at one point in 1 year we had as many as about 70 plus reported cases of rape. And many of these females were females who were waiting 5 o'clock in the morning to catch a bus to go to work. What is happening now? People have their cars, they're driving directly to work, and the amount of rapes would have fallen significantly. Even our home domestics, for example, they now are driving. So rather than going to one home and spending an entire day, they'll offer maybe 2 or 3 hours, make $100, $150, and in a given day, a person who is doing home domestic can probably do about 3 homes, $450 a day. You do the math, times 300, times 30 days a week. That is what is happening in this country. And that is why we keep telling people that they must level up. We are providing an opportunity for our people to level up the standard of living, to be better citizens, to make sure that we keep our environment clean and pristine, to beautify our environment. And those of you who live in various communities in which you see a significant amount of garbage and so on and indiscriminate dumping, we are asking you to join the government in holding our citizens and our residents responsible. We want Antigua and Barbuda to be clean and beautiful. When our visitors come here, they must say that Antigua and Barbuda is one of the finest countries in the world in terms of the physical look and with the people. There's no doubt that we're among the most hospitable in the world already. So, in as much as we're here to talk about the hard skills in terms of having the educational standing and the competence to perform, there's also the soft skills that we're working on to make sure that you're even better versions than us, than my generation, to make sure that you're better cultured, to make sure that you're better skilled. That is why, too, that we're investing over $25 million in a performing arts center, the former Deluxe building. That will be converted into a performing arts center, and it will be completed by September of this year. You recognize, too, that globally Antigua and Barbuda today is well known. We are respected, and we have been attracting a number of international conferences here because of the leadership that we have actually given to the international community. We are not just bystanders. And we want you to continue that trajectory. We want you to stand in any forum and to speak competently on any issue. Because at the end of the day, we have the talent, we have the skills. Perhaps you don't have the confidence. And I'm certainly here to encourage you to be confident individuals from now. Don't wait until you grow older. Develop the art of speaking competently and confidently. Develop the discipline of increasing your knowledge and applying your knowledge. Knowledge is not just to stay in your heads. Knowledge is to be utilized to make your community better, to uplift those around you, your family members, your friends. And again, just to summarize what the financial secretary would have said, the country run good on the labor. So when she said to you, for example, that debt to GDP, those of you who do economics, is down to 61%. That's an excellent performance. When she said to you that we have fiscal surpluses, a primary surplus of $250 million, $250 million, that is performance, that is good governance. A primary surplus of over $160 million, again, good governance, good performance. Unemployment under 10%, probably maybe down to about 5-6%. That's good performance. Practically every single person in this country who's available to work can work. Some people choose to not to work for various reasons. And we want to encourage each of you, certainly, to be productive citizens. Those of you who pursue studies in economics will understand the issue of productivity. They need to ensure that national productivity is at a high level so that we can sustain growth and development. And your input will be required to ensure that the aggregated productivity of our workers is such that Antigua and Barbuda continues to be one of the highly performing economies here in the Caribbean and beyond. So even if when you leave school and you may not get your ideal job, it doesn't matter. Take whatever is available until you can get what you want. The key issue is to be a productive citizen. I recall, for example, when I left A-levels, I took a job at St. James's Club as a waiter. Not because I was not qualified for the jobs, but my applications had just gone out. I was waiting for the banks and the airlines and so on to respond. And eventually I had 2 airlines and a bank that offered me a job. I chose the bank job at the time. But the fact that I recognized as a teenager that I needed to work, and by the way, I had to work because my mother at the time was mentally ill, a single parent home, mentally ill mother. So if I didn't work, I would have starved. So the necessity, I had to work. And I took the job that was available. First job that I got was, as I said, a waiter. Did it for a month. And then I ended up being called by Swiss American and became a banker, not necessarily by choice, fortuitously. And ended up having a career in banking, and a career that I considered perhaps would have been far more successful than if I had pursued the sciences. And I would say this too, that having served in banking and having pursued degrees in management, in fact I eventually did a postgraduate degree with the University of Manchester, having the training and the experience working in the private sector, and certainly within the public sector after I became a minister in 1999, those would have equipped me with the skills to serve as Prime Minister. So by the time I got the leadership of the Antigua and Barbuda Labour Party and would have contested the 2014 elections, I could have said to the people of Antigua and Barbuda confidently and competently that I had the skills to run this country. There was no doubt about it. In fact, even before that, in terms of my own personal contribution to the country, people could have seen it. During an opposition, I actually built over 100 homes in this country, me personally. The government at the time built less than 50. So one man in opposition built more properties for Antiguans and Barbudans than an entire government in 10 years. And that is the kind of competence that you need to create confidence and to create value within the society. So one's contribution should not just be limited to public service, but even in terms of what you can do using your private skills. And I've said to many individuals, they claim that they're bright. Some of them have terminal degrees, they have their PhDs and so on. And they are literally leading slothful lives. And I've said to them, Let your education work for you. If you're so bright, go and create some value. Do some kind of business that can help people, that can employ people. If you can't do that, what makes you so bright? So your education, again, is not to just boast that you have a certificate, but to let your education work for you and the people of this country to make a positive contribution. Always think about ways and means in which you can contribute. You may pursue certain businesses, they may fail. That doesn't mean that you should stop. In fact, at one point, I considered myself a serial entrepreneur. So I've sold everything you can think about that was illegal to be sold. And, I've always been doing stuff. And the key thing about life, about being productivity is to do things. Be active. Just do. Doesn't matter the outcome. We weren't put on this earth to be laggards or to be slothful. In fact, I think it's Matthew chapter 25, if I have my scripture right, that spoke about the talents. And, the Most High said to the one that buried his talent, well, let's put it this way, he wasn't too kind to him. The Lord rewarded those who utilize the talents effectively. So if you have 2 talents, multiply it. If you have 3, multiply it. And even if you just have 1, don't go and envy people who have more talents than you. Make your 1 talent works for you. So again, we're just trying to share leadership insights here with you. I'm not here to bore you about economics, about the use of scarce resources effectively and the production and distribution of resources and so on. You don't know that already. And management, about organizing society and so on. You don't know that. I'm here to encourage you to be productive citizens and to understand where we're taking this country and the progress that we have made in every aspect of our development. We still have some gaps. Some of you may argue, look man, the roads are bad in the government for a while. That is true. But guess what? We are actually building and repairing roads in every single constituency in this country. And it won't stop. We're going to continue until we resolve the road issues within the country. In fact, we have a road bond of $100 million from the commercial banks. We haven't even drawn a cent from it. So you know that we have money to continue after the election. So in an election gimmick or gimmickry. It's a real commitment to fix your roads. Water, as an example. And again, I'm telling you how we are utilizing the scarce resources of the country to empower you. Previous governments had these issues too, But admittedly, the country just was not generating sufficient monies to fix the roads and to fix the water problem. They wouldn't tell you that. They'll come and tell you that it's the Labour Party fault, it's Gaston Brown's fault. But they're in government for 10 years and didn't add 1 gallon of water to the water capacity. When they left government, the water capacity was about 2.5 million gallons a day. Today it's 11 million, and by the end of the year getting up to about 14 million. We have spent over $200 million scarce resources in order to resolve the water problem. If you observe, for example, we have not had a good shower of rain for the last 6 months in this country. But guess what? You don't have to go to the public standpipe and fight for water. Those who owe like me would know that a few decades ago, maybe about 3 decades ago, we had to go all around the country to look for water, bucket by your head. You guys have to study about that, you don't have to worry about that. So, because we're one of the most arid countries in the world, one of the most water scarce countries in the world, the supply of water has always been a problem. But my administration is the only one that would have allocated over $200 million, about $250 million, to address the issue. And even though it's not fully resolved, it's getting better. The irony about it is that now that we have all this pressure, all these plants putting pressure in the pipes, the old rotten pipes in them from colonial days, they're bursting. So we have to fix those too. And we're fixing them. And we're going to do a complete repiping. So I believe that within the next 12 to 18 months, the water issue will be basically resolved, but it's work in progress. And I'm using this to educate you because there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation in the society. And I want you to understand and to be able to reason with others and to say to them with clarity and truthfully what is happening in the country. Roads, again, Antigua has had historically the worst roads maybe in the world. But we're fixing them too. And the interesting thing about it, when we came to government in 2014, just to tell you about the whole issue of economics and the fiscal aspects and even the financial aspects or the monetary aspects. We had an unfortunate situation in which there were three sets of failures in this country. There was fiscal failure, and those of you who do economics, you understand fiscal, in that the government was running up constant deficits up to 9% of GDP, hundreds of millions of dollars in deficits. And that was not new, because previous administrations, even the one in which I served between 1999 and 2004, the Celeste Bird administration, and prior to that, V.C. Bird administration, every year, they just had consistent deficits. So the growth that they enjoyed was actually supported by borrowings. Now, the growth that you're experiencing today is not as a result of borrowings, because we're paying down debt. It is as a result of the investments that we have attracted, hundreds of billions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, or billions of dollars, I should say rather. And we have also been fiscally responsible to the extent that we've had surpluses for the last 2 years, and this year we'll have a surplus again. So we have created a sustainable fiscal framework in this country for the first time since independence. I want you all to digest that. The first administration since independence that has created a sustainable fiscal framework in this country is the Gaston Brown administration on the issue of the economy. Between 2009 and 2014, under the UPP administration, the country's economy contracted practically every single year. The gross, or let's say the net for that matter, the net reduction was 25% of GDP. Now, we had a contraction, a significant contraction during COVID, and practically most countries, if not all, in 2020 experienced economic contraction. But we rebounded to the extent that the growth that took place after 2020 was an average about 6% per annum. Under the UPP, with a lesser crisis, a global crisis, because the fiscal fundamentals and economic fundamentals were so flawed, or so weak, they could not recover the economy. It took a change of government in 2014 to restore sustainable growth. And it's because of the fiscal policies that we introduced. And one of the things that we did when we came to government in 2014, we eliminated personal income tax. So every single person today who is making, let's say, more than about $3,500, $4,000 a month, we are literally putting back hundreds, and in most cases, thousands of dollars back into the pockets on a monthly basis. If we had maintained personal income tax in the books, the government will be about $80 million a year richer today, because we practically doubled the economy within the last 10 years. Again, I'm showing you how egalitarian my government is, how empowering we are, putting monies back into the pockets of the people. But you know what that did? It means that they could build more homes. So over 4,000 people within the last several years would have built new homes. Again, those homes subsidized by the government of Antigua and Barbuda. So they're benefiting by not paying personal income tax, having more monies in their pockets, more disposable income. And at the same time, we're reducing the burden of the taxes that they had to pay on the building material and fixtures and fittings and so on that they had to purchase for their homes. So you can see what has happened now is that my administration has developed what I consider to be a good equilibrium between the social aspects, the economic aspects, making sure that the government doesn't get too wealthy and to burden the private individuals, and at the same time making sure that private individuals can live well, that they can have good sustainable income so that they can provide for their families, so that they can send their children to good schools or abroad to study, and even to be subsidized with scholarships from the government. Again, just a good economic and social space at this time that needs to be maintained. But it didn't happen by accident. And I don't want to sound as though I'm bragging, but it is because of effective leadership. And I cannot overemphasize how important it is for us to continue to encourage you to see yourselves as leaders, and at the same time to prepare yourself from now. It was Malcolm X, for example, who said that, the future belongs to those who prepare today. So you need to prepare yourself from now. He actually said that education is a passport to the future. So right now, this is your passport for you to hold on to make sure that you become the future leaders and to have the level of competence so that you can continue that trajectory. I have to admit that perhaps previous leaders would have failed to motivate the youth to get involved in governance in the public and private sectors. To the extent that, when I look at our opponents, and excuse me, and I'm trying to make it a political speech, all I see are a bunch of buffoons. We need competent people to run the country. Because you see, there's someone who said that leadership matters, and it does matter. And a country is as good as its leader. If you have a bad teacher, right? You're likely to struggle, I remember at one point at Princess Margaret School, I was doing biology, chemistry, math, a science student, and wanted to do physics. But we had a late teacher. I'm sure you all must have heard of him, those of you who maybe are my age, Master D. One dotish man. I mean, I don't think that he had maybe more than one pass per year. And the person who would have passed probably gotten at best a C. And I felt that the educational officials, they did a disservice to the Princess Margaret School students by having, I think Master D was actually mentally ill. And I'm not being facetious. I'm a mentally ill man, literally undermining people's education. And the equivalent in politics is no different, If you have a dotish leader, what do you think will happen? You can mash up the country. You have a leader who is untrained. What do you think will happen? Now when you mash up the country, become the laughing stock of the world. And I go there and represent this country, nobody can style the Rasta Dread man now. Anyway, let me wrap up and allow you to ask the questions. So once again, thank you very much. And I hope I would have shared some insights in terms of how we're using our knowledge of economics, management, sociology, to bring good value to the people of Antigua and Barbuda to empower them. And again, we encourage you to be good citizens, and we look forward to your stepping up, leveling up, positioning yourselves now to take over the leadership of the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Crump and Mr. Brown. Very insightful. I'm happy you guys didn't bore us at all. You brought in the C, the plus, the G, the X. I know they're very much familiar with that. And I can say with my management students, I can agree with you. Our students have skill, they have talent, but they lack confidence. And that is why I really wanted leadership in the room today, so that I can see we all start from somewhere small and we made a way somewhere great. So if you guys have a lot of ideas, I just want them to be more confident. And I know I have some lawyers over here, some actuary scientists over here. Yes. You brought out some nice points about some skills that they can go into. So I know no doubt that this speech really encouraged them. And since we are bringing in scriptures, I like that. I like the one, Proverbs 22:29. It mentions, have you ever seen a man skillful at his work? He will stand before kings and not amongst common men. So even though we're a small island, and we have small roots and background, we can stand in front of skilled individuals and kings because of our talents. So we're going to open the floor. I know they have a lot of questions for you guys. If you guys need the mic, but I know we're comfortable with it. If you need the mic, just let me know. But we have macroeconomics, microeconomics, management of business, unit 2, and we also have sociology. So if you guys have any questions for any one of our presenters, you can just raise your hands. And if you need a mic, I'll bring it to you. So we have Kimani.
So currently we must understand what is going on in the world right now with the different wars and so forth. And currently our EC is pegged to US dollars. So now, if this world crisis is happening, what is going to happen in the future if the US is being so managed and so forth?
So if this US is
like the US dollars is going up and we're pegged to the US dollars. Do you think that we should peg to something else also or no?
the short answer at this point is no. Can you hear me? No, the short answer is no. I don't know that we're at a stage at this point to be concerned about identifying another currency. And of course, one of the questions that arises is, what's the alternative? What else can we contemplate at this point? And funny enough, we discussed this just a few months ago at a monetary council and a meeting at the ECCB, where a lot of work continues to be done on a daily basis to assess, and nothing has happened at this point that makes it necessary to contemplate pegging to anything else. The US dollar is still very strong, and it's more than just the US economy. There's a lot of other factors that go into contemplating where you peg your US dollar, and we certainly are very confident. But where you peg your currency, we are certainly very confident that we are still in a good position in terms of pegging to the US dollar.
Again, the volume. Just to reinforce the point that was made by our distinguished financial secretary, and the current chairman of the Monetary Council. This is an area that we're monitoring constantly to see if there's any movement in terms of the amount of trade that has been done in US dollars, certainly the reserve position within the US. As it stands now, there has been no change, and there is no other viable alternative at this time. The US is still the most significant trading country in the world. Most trades actually done in the United States, dollars. In fact, you'll know too that oil sales are done exclusively in US dollars, and until there's some major disruption, that should not be an issue. We don't think that will happen anytime soon. I mean, the US economy alone by itself is about 25% of the global economy. So that is a country in which most have confidence and they continue to invest their reserves. So the United States will have to do something really foolish to undermine the fact that most reserves are held in the US currency. But the issue is that the EC dollar is currently 99% backed by securities, primarily securities. So even if there were to be some, let's say, reduction in the value of the US dollars, it will have to be significant to fall below that threshold of 60%. The backing ratio is 60%. Currently, it's 99%. So I'll say that the currency is safe and secure, and you should not have to worry about the value of the EC dollar. Very good question indeed. Thank you very much.
Yes, very good question, Kimani. We have a question from Kobe Macroeconomics.
From Mr. Davis, as a student of economics, what skills do you think students of economics, what skills do you think we should prioritize sharpening for the betterment of our country?
That is an amazing question. When in my presentation I mentioned the importance of critical thinking. So yes, the theory is absolutely important. Understand and continually read about developments in your field of study, develop your craft. But the one thing that I would say that I look for more than anything else is critical thinking, being able to go beyond what the textbook said or go beyond what is in front of you, being able to reason whatever the issue is that you're dealing with, because on a daily basis we have to make tough decisions, because again, for economics we're dealing with scarce resources, so you have to make a decision about using the scarce resource that you have for the best and most impactful outcome. And all the information that will be available to you is asymmetry of information, and you have to be able to look at everything critically and make that determination. Generally, that's what I would say most important, being very good at thinking critically and looking at all the facts that you have available to you and making the best decision you can in the circumstances. You're doing actuarial science. Who's doing it?
Micro.
Someone. No, I thought you mentioned someone doing actuarial science. Pardon?
Again,
Future. Okay.
if I can also supplement that answer. So the technical skills are important in every career that you pursue. But you also have to develop the soft skills. There are too many of our skilled individuals who are in middle management positions, but they cannot make it to top management because they lack the soft skills. You could be the brightest, you could be the most competent, but if you don't have those soft skills to create the kind of confidence and the type of well-cultured personality, your upward mobility in an organization could be undermined or maybe protracted. There's also the issue of discipline. I mean, being disciplined, show up to work. There's some people who believe because the law allows for 12 sick days that automatically they should take them. I worked in the banking sector for 13 years, sorry. And I was only absent on one occasion, for 1 day in 13 years, unless I was on vacation. Or maybe I was traveling for professional reasons. I looked forward to going to work every single day, so I became extremely dependable. And I believe that's one of the reasons why I was actually fast-tracked through management, because the management at the time felt that they could have invested in me because of my reliability and my discipline, and the efficiency plus the skills that I would have developed. So do not underestimate the importance of discipline, of the soft skills, gracious to everybody. And if you're going to be honest with ourselves, our culture is a culturally coarse culture. Sometimes we're not very respectful of each other. And in many instances too. As we advance in an organization, many of us become very rude and crude. But again, ultimately, people are watching, people are looking. And if they don't have the confidence that you have the social graces to complement your hard skills, your technical competence, then you may not make it into a senior position. We have observed this within the hotel sector in particular, which we're still struggling to get high-level managers. And not only the issue of continuous learning is also important. There's some people who believe that as soon as they get a first degree that they've arrived and automatically they should be promoted into management. It doesn't work like that. You know, you have to continue to pay your dues, and you have to be patient. You have to, notwithstanding whatever objectives you may have, even if the promotion doesn't come within your expectation, continue to work hard. You don't give up, because at the end of the day, if you then become destructive in your behavior, then you would have eliminated any possibility of being promoted. So again, I want to emphasize a culture of continuous learning, because even today, a first degree is certainly not very competitive. If you have a first degree, you should be thinking about getting a master's degree. If you have a master's degree, you should be thinking about getting a terminal degree to make sure that you're competitive. Because when you look at the fact that we have a university campus, within the next 10 years, at least 50% of our country's population will probably have, I'd say, a first degree. And then when you have ABCAS in terms of the skill, they get up to about maybe 80%. So that's how I see it. These are the kind of high ambitions that we're setting for people. So you should not think that just by having a first degree that that's going to take you to the top. Having, postgraduate degrees and at the same time having the kind of, let's say, hard work, good work ethic, I should say, as well as the social skills and social graces. Those are what will differentiate you from your competitors and help you to get to the top. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a question from Najee, Management of Business.
What industry do you believe has the greatest potential for growth in Barbuda beyond tourism? And to add on to that, as young entrepreneurs, something I find is that I lack ideas on businesses to start. And in your opinion, what's something that we need from our young entrepreneurs? Like what form of businesses or things that we lack,
as a serial entrepreneur?
I'm going to start with tourism because you see, many things that we do, they actually spin offs from tourism. You may be, let's say, an entrepreneur who may be involved in some form of business that is supported by tourism. It could be some kind of rental business, car rental, property rental. If you're focusing on attracting tourists, it's still tourism, Airbnb properties and so on. But in Barbados is actually becoming, I'd say, a lifestyle superpower. And I don't use those words literally. St. Bart's today is considered to be the marquee luxury destination in the Caribbean. It is a small island, probably about maybe 20 miles away from Barbuda. What we're trying to do now is to position Barbuda as the next St. Bart's, bigger and better. So for example, St. Bart's does have a proper airport. In Barbuda, we have an airport there which jets have been landing there for the last couple of years. We can expand it so we can also accommodate commercial jet traffic directly into Barbuda, building out the new port facility and so on. But what is important in Barbuda is that we have attracted billions of dollars in investments, and within the last 4 years, over, I'd say, 1.5 billion US dollars have been spent in Barbuda to build out some luxury properties. Now, those luxury properties bring with them opportunities. Let me give you a case in point. The Barbadosian Club, that is one of the properties. They have spent so far over $1 billion US dollars. They will eventually have about, I'd say, 300 luxury homes, ranging between maybe, let's say, 10 to 60 million US each. Those properties require property managers. And when you have a property that's worth 20, 30, 40 million dollars, you want somebody who is qualified to manage your property. And paying $4,000 or $5,000 a month is nothing to those individuals because it's about protecting an asset that is worth, as I said, 30, 40 million, 50 million. So I can see, for example, hundreds of jobs, opportunities for property management being created on Barbuda. And it will be important for those of you, those who are Barbudans for sure, to equip themselves with property management skills. There are many Antiguans who are managing these properties, even at Jumbly Bay. I know, for example, a personal friend of my wife, she was working at Jumbly Bay. Jumbly Bay is one of the highest paying hotels on the island. But she actually transitioned into property management. She's now managing a property on Jumbly Bay that is worth about 60 million US. And she can pay $5,000 US a month, plus perks. So when we looked at the stats last year, for example, we observed that a few thousand jobs were created just last year in 2025, involving, let's say, between the range $10,000 to $15,000. Now, when you're generating thousands of jobs, paying that kind of money, that is how you truly uplift people that expand the capital income to make sure that our people can earn a premium. Pool maintenance, as an example. If we need a pool, it costs about $1,500 each. Barbuda is going to end up, I believe, with no less, and this is within a 24-month period, no less than 500 pools. Now, if you have, let's say, 10 people involved in that business, and they can get 50 pools per year, maybe that's too much. Maybe get 50 people getting 10 pools per year, and for each pool you clean, you get $1,500. That's $15,000. And normally, all you have to do is buy a little chemical and a little manpower, and you can really, maybe the chemicals are only maybe $1,000, $2,000 a month. So if you spend $2,000 and you're grossing $15,000 a month, you get a net of $13,000. That will be an opportunity, and it exists now, not in the quantities that we will have in the next 2 years, but certainly Barbudans who are trained to clean pools, and that's not rocket science. There's somebody to show you how to use the chemicals, and you take a little strain and strain out the lotion and so on, and then you get it into the pool. That's simple stuff to make big money. Even cleaning, for example, cleaning, property cleaning. Setting up your little property cleaning company,
to clean these properties, but the people don't have time to clean house. So it's you know what a great job. You have a property management or cleaning company for that matter, and you can charge them a premium. They're not very price sensitive. So instead of going there and working somebody else and getting maybe $200 a day, it's no money. Paying $4,000 a month to clean your house. Yeah, so you have all these opportunities, for entrepreneurship, even in terms of, let's say, cruise tourists. And I want to make the point here. We're going high. You don't want those big boats with them for tourists in Barbados. So you have some luxury boats that may have probably about 50, 60 cabins. And the typical person who will utilize that service will have to pay probably up to about $25,000 a night. Bringing those luxury boats to Barbados. And they will want services. By the way, one of the things that we want to ensure too is that Antilles and Barbados get involved in the high-end restaurant business. So those at ABCAS who are pursuing hospitality studies need to also think about getting involved in the food and beverage space, because we also want to use our food as a form of food and beverage as a form of product differentiation, so that I think Barbados should be known as perhaps the best culinary destination in the Caribbean. I know already that there are a few graduates of ABCAS who participated in a Caribbean competition. I think last year, we placed second, and I'm hoping we get in the pole position. But the point I'm making here, I've seen some of the foods that they're preparing using local produce and meats. I saw, for example, somebody prepared breadfruit, nicely plated, very tasty. If we can create that type of gourmet food within the country, that in itself will also be a great opportunity for entrepreneurship and to make money. So, unlike, for example, local foods, they get a big plate of rice, slap down on a plate, and pay $15, $20. You have a gourmet restaurant with Antiguan flavor using local produce. You can probably maybe charge about $50 per meal. And that was going to get real money, real profits. So this is where we want to also start to think. And even those doing about the local space. And because you deal with locals, when you come and buy our food, we want our food properly served, properly plated. When you think you're just slap them a big ball of food, you put and then when you look at issues of NCEs, all the starch that they put in on our plate, it's not necessary, they're making us sick. So when we say level up, even the way in which we produce food, the foods we eat, the quantities, the amount of sugar and starches that we consume, those are issues that we have to take into consideration. In fact, my administration has been looking at the holistic plan. We're looking at how we can make Antigua and Barbados a better place, how we can make it healthier, how we can ensure that you're better educated. And the public education and awareness is very important. And whereas your young people now, when it doesn't matter how much starch and sugars that you use now, it catches up. So by the time they get to probably late 30s, 40s, they start to get all kinds of problems, diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol. So if we can encourage our students, our young people, to lead healthier lives and now to understand that you are what you eat, we'll have a healthier population. And then you know that Antigua and Barbuda and most Caribbean countries, we have the highest prevalence of diabetes in the world. So 1 in every 4 people in this country practically has diabetes. Even exaggerating 1 in 5. And if you take out the young people, like half of the adults who get up to about age 50, they have diabetes. And what is happening? We have all these premature deaths. So we're calling on you, the younger generation, to to eat better, to live better, and to pass on these values to your offspring. Because if we don't start in public awareness now, the educational process, and to share these insights, then we're going to become a very sick nation. And again, we're looking at all aspects of our development, even spiritual, that we have introduced in their prayer. Because we believe that as a successful nation, that we must always come together at least once a year and give thanks to the Most High for His mercies and blessings, to His protection. And at the same time, to just pray for His continued protection and to give thanks for all the progress we have made. So again, many opportunities to go back to the original president in Barbuda. And if you want to have a further discussion, sir, in terms of the niche areas, let me know. We have the Entrepreneurial Fund, which we provide funding. If you have any good value-added idea like tourism and agriculture, manufacturing, and you need support, the Entrepreneurial Fund is there. The premises Entrepreneurial Fund is located in the Statutory Building. And again, we're looking forward to a surge in the amount of entrepreneurship taking place in this country. We want to see a reduction in the amount of imports. Unfortunately, 80% of what we consume is imported in the country. A lot of the foods and so on that we import, all around still food. We need to grow more, grow more crops, produce more animals so we can get fresh produce and meats. That's an area of opportunity both in Antigua and Barbuda. I may not know this, but I'm the biggest farmer there right now.
Farmer Brown.
And by the way, I sell 150 pigs a month. Yep. And I started about 3 years ago, bought 30 pigs from a local farmer. And those 30 pigs multiplied to the extent that if you go to a farm, there are at least 1,500 pigs there. So the butchers go up to the farm every week. They choose their pig, they butcher it, they get the head, they get the hooves, they get the belly for rice pudding for free. And then we share the cost of the meat. So when they sell the meat, we get $5, and they sell for $8, $9, they get $3, $4. Win-win for everybody. So lots of opportunities, and if you're going to be entrepreneurs, you must be able to think creatively, not for others to think for you. Look within the society. Those of you who understand economics know that entrepreneurship is about filling needs. Look within the society, look within Barbuda, you know what is available, what is not available, and fill those needs. Economics is about production and consumption. So look at the production, the consumption. If there is a consumption shortage, reduce it and you make money.
I just want to add one thing for the entrepreneur minded. Now, with entrepreneurial minded, there is a special carve-out in the entrepreneurial development program for youth. So you can contact, I'll probably use my contact information as well as the chair of that program. So if you have ideas, you can get in touch with them. They will guide you as well in developing and expanding your ideas. But there is a special window for youth and young women. So please take the opportunity.
Youth is what age?
Pardon?
What constitutes youth?
18
plus. They must be
18 plus, yeah. It must be 18, yes.
Because
18 and
If you're under 18, you can't contract.
You can't sign contracts, right? Yeah?
Okay, thank you, Najee. So I see a hand here. I saw Romaine, and then I'll go to the young lady in the back. So Romaine, then the young lady in the back.
Good evening.
Romaine is microeconomics.
Nice.
Good evening. From your opinion, or by any statistical facts, what sectors like tourism, agriculture, and technology do you believe will drive future economic growth?
Future
economic growth. You said agriculture, tourism, and technology, all of the above. All of the above. And
But I'll say, especially technology.
yes.
That is certainly an area. The issue of digitalization is very important. So you'll see, I'll say, the intensification in the digitalization of services include healthcare, education, even agriculture. Using AI, for example, in agricultural production. So it is estimated that most of the jobs that are created in the future will come from digitalization.
Good question. You can just share your name and sociology.
So, good morning, I'm Crystal, and my question is, would you in future instances implement shifting the burden of taxes on low-income earners and essential goods towards high-net-worth earners or corporations or companies to promote equity?
Okay, I kind of missed the latter part. Can you repeat it?
Would
Yeah, you want to take it?
Yeah,
Sure, thank you. So again, just to give you a little historical perspective, when we assumed the governance of the country in 2014, we found that Antigua and Barbuda had one of the highest Gini coefficients in the world. It was 0.87. Now the Gini coefficient is actually a measure of the skewness of wealth within a country. So that is why we have actually addressed the issue of personal income tax. One of the reasons why we eliminated personal income tax, to put more monies into the pockets of the working class people. So that was one of the ways in which we addressed it. In the case of corporation taxes, we didn't change corporation taxes, so they continue to carry the burden of income tax. I believe last year alone we collected about 150 million. About $150 million in corporation taxes, not 1 cent in personal income tax. So that was a significant measure, which would have put $80 million back into the pockets of the ordinary people. One of the ways in which, the ordinary man and woman would have benefited from our tax policy, I will accept that some people may consider it retrogressive in the sense that the wealthy benefit too. Is the actual zero rating and exemption of a number of goods. Most recently, we would have done fruits and vegetables in which we eliminated all of the taxes. So things like strawberries and so on that were beyond the means of the average person, those are now available to Antiguans and Barbudans to the extent that the supermarkets can keep them on the shelves. They're going like hot bread and butter. So I do accept that it could be considered retrogressive, but then again, how many strawberries so the wealthy people can eat? And again, in a society you have to create balance. You cannot socialize everything. You have to make sure too that there's a space at the table even for the wealthy. So we are pursuing an egalitarian policy to make sure that everyone benefits. They say that a rising tide lifts all boats, but at the same time we are focusing on the poor and vulnerable and the working class. So that is why the working class enjoys these duty waivers. Now, one of the ways in which we limited the wealthy from participating, the CABI program, for example, in which we waived the duties and taxes on the importation of building material, furnishing, fixtures, fittings, we actually limited to 500,000. Generally speaking, a wealthy person who is building a home today, it's over $1 million. So they do not benefit because their homes generally fall outside of that category. The home advancement program, for example, in which we're helping the poor and indigent, only the poor and indigent benefits. The voucher program, for example, that we are assisting, again, the poor and vulnerable, the wealthy, they do not benefit. So we're using these subsidies to assist the poor and vulnerable and to have this transfer of wealth. Now, even our duty-free policy, for example, you'll find that it is mostly the poor and vulnerable who are purchasing these used cars who would have benefited. Generally speaking, they get 100% off the duty, no less than 50%. What we've done in the case of the new vehicles, those who are buying the luxury vehicles here, we limit them, we reduce them to about 25%, because our position is that, look, those who are wealthy, they should pay. But we also understand that within the middle class, some people who you may consider very wealthy, because you may see them driving a nice SUV, some of them they're struggling. By the time they finish paying for their, let's say, SUV, then they may have two, husband and wife, and they pay for the mortgage and so on, and the school fees, there's some struggle there too. So in as much as you look at them and you see them driving their fancy cars and you think they're so wealthy, they have struggles too. So we make sure that they benefit as well. Now, you may see that as a policy that is retrogressive, thinking they have money, they should not benefit. Again, a government is about balance, it's about empowering all the people, not some of the people.
Yes, I just want to add an additional thing to this. Education. In terms of investment for future, everyone, that's the great equalizer.
And healthcare.
Investment in education and healthcare. Healthcare, essentially free. I mean, whenever I go to the hospital and I have to do something, and I compare that to what I know exists in other ECCU countries and elsewhere in the metropolitan nations, what we receive in terms of healthcare could be improved. Yes, absolutely. but we don't spend anywhere near the cost of what's required to deliver it. And then, of course, for education, your ABCAS fees, the scholarships to attend UE and so on, all of that helps. CXC fees as well, absolutely, and CAPE fees. So all of that is also, and remember I mentioned before, how do you use the resources that you have and allocate it effectively to impact as many people as possible? Now we could have income tax, maybe increase the rate on for corporations, but at the end of the day, I don't think it would have the kind of impact that we have here in terms of how we approach fiscal policy and how we approach utilizing resources to fund education and other services.
And I'll make another point here too. The wealthy people, they love to send their children to school in North America and Europe. So when we give you a scholarship, it's primarily poor people who are benefiting, especially when you go to UE. And you know too that, or even ABCAS, because we have waived the fees, as soon as you finish building out the new campus at UE, your tuition will be free. You're getting tuition-free university education. And it's primarily the working class people who benefit, because at the end of the day, you're in the majority. The wealthy people in this country may be about 10% of the population. And to have a policy in which you exclude them, I don't know that's a sustaining policy. The entrepreneurial fund that we have in place is, poor ordinary people who benefit. The wealthy man come and try and get any funding out of that, of course, will not assist them. And we make sure we subsidize interest rate. It's between 1 to 3% per annum compared to the commercial business rate now, about 10%. So there are many social policies that we have introduced, and they were designed specifically to give the ordinary person in this country a fair chance and to address the issue of the skewed distribution of wealth. We haven't done a study recently, but we'll do one soon, and I'm pretty sure that the skewedness in the distribution of wealth would have reduced significantly because of these social policies, including the subsidy for homes, for cars, and businesses that we have introduced within the last decade, or let's say 11 years.
Thank you. I saw Juliss's hand, so we're going to go to Julissa. I'll come to you, Shadi.
Okay, so my question is, what specific steps can small businesses take to align
National development priorities, what steps they can take?
Yeah.
So my question is, what specific steps can small businesses take to align with national development priorities so they can benefit from government support and grow into competitive export-ready products?
Thank you. And I have to use my teacher voice. Yes, so I think what I would say is this, because at this point, the field is wide open. Whatever a small business wants to engage in, that's up to you. As Prime Minister mentioned, see where the demand is, understand what is required, and go for it. There is a Small Business Development Act that exists. So we mentioned the Entrepreneurial Development Program, but there's also a Small Business Development Act that provides concessions. It doesn't matter what area you want to go in. That's the choice of the small business or the entrepreneur. The provisions are there in the Act. You get duty-free concessions, subsidies, other support, including training and guidance in terms of how you manage your books, for instance. How do you consider your inputs? What items do you need to import? You will be able to import those without having to pay taxes. You get support as well from Inland Revenue because you have to register your business. But the Inland Revenue Department also makes special provisions to assist a small business to register without all of the cumbersome steps that maybe a larger company would have to go through. So at this point, nothing prevents you from pursuing whatever path you want. The law is there that gives you concessions once you decide to make the plunge into entrepreneurship.
And if I may add here, in terms of national priorities, we want to become a more food-secured nation. In fact, I'm not even sure that is a correct statement. That suggests that we are food-secured and we're trying to become more food-secured. In fact, we are one of the most food-insecure countries in the world. So we want to become food-secured. It means that we require additional investments in agriculture, and that is certainly a national priority. We saw, for example, during COVID how vulnerable we were, that at one point even the cargo boats had stopped sailing for a while, and if that had continued for an extended period, we probably would have had to eat each other. So recognizing that experience, we have to understand that some other crisis will come, certainly if not in my lifetime, in yours. And we have to prepare our country to be in a position to mitigate that risk. It means that we have to produce more food. Now, we have the infrastructure in place to assist farmers. So we have the entrepreneurial fund that the distinguished financial secretary spoke about. And if you're involved in agriculture, you can borrow at 1%. That's right. And we also offer very generous concessions. So for example, all of the inputs for agriculture, they come in free of all duties and taxes. In addition, we have a lot of subsidies for agriculture. We provide free fertilizer for farmers. We also recently purchased millions of dollars, probably close to $10 million worth of heavy equipment, and 2 abattoirs. One will be a chicken abattoir, because what we're trying to do here is to expand the agricultural production so we can produce more produce and meats. As I said to you before, the produce and meats that we get here, the chicken and so on, they're nice for maybe up to 6 months. Sometimes they come from Brazil and they spend time in the United States on ice before they get here. It could be too that increase in prevalence is due to some of the produce and meats that we are importing into the country. Many of them too, they are genetically modified and so on. So in many instances, we don't know what we're eating for that matter. So if we can produce more, one, the nutritional content will be better, and secondly, locally produced goods potentially can be cheaper. If you go down to the market and you go and buy some potatoes and so on, cheaper than going and buying certain foods in the supermarkets. They may not be as nicely presented, but they are certainly healthier. So we're now focusing significantly on agricultural production. So as I said, we bought nearly $10 million worth of equipment. The 2 abattoirs are being constructed. We have purchased heavy equipment to build out feeder roads to farmers. We'll be supplying solar lights. So we recognize that with climate change that we're having frequent heat waves, and we will be providing the opportunity for farmers to work at nights. We also encourage them to have security cameras so that, again, we can increase production. We have reduced the price for pipe-borne water that will be utilized on farms by 25%. It will be increased to 50%. But as far as we're concerned, using expensive reverse osmosis water is not the most efficacious way to utilize a scarce resource. So the equipment that we bought will be utilized to build ponds and dams for farmers. We will do it for free. We have started already. In fact, we built one in it's diamonds they call it, not diamonds. I can't remember the name of the area, but we are building our dams already. So what will happen? Every farmer who has a tributary to his or her farm, or if you have some buildings that can catch water and they go into a pond, we'll build a pond for you for free. We have tractors that will plow the land, heavy equipment to clear the land, to plow the land. So there's a comprehensive program in place, but we're going further. We just paid $9 million to Kennedy's Club to acquire a 5-acre property located in Casada Gardens. We'll be creating a food emporium, which will be operated by CMC. So CMC will have a second location. And the whole idea is to use CMC to provide cheaper prices, food prices to Antiguans and Barbudans, and at the same time to provide a market for our local farmers. So when they produce their products, they can take them to CMC, and CMC will then sell them to you at a cheaper price. We are also exploring other markets external of the United States, in Europe and South America, to source food products for that new food emporium that will be established within a matter of months. So that, again, we can get cheaper prices, because we recognize the cost of living is an issue. We hear your cries, we don't have our feet firmly planted in the skies. Rasta Judgment hearing you all, and we're listening, and we're introducing policies to assist. So late in the year, we should have this food emporium. huge facility. It may end up being one of the largest facilities on the island. And not that we want to compete with the established supermarkets, but we have to find an opportunity for the poorer class of people so they can get good produce and meats at a cheaper price. And that is the whole objective why we're now repositioning CMC to play a more significant role and to position our farmers to make our country more food secured. So we want to invite the private sector in particular, even to start with some of you as youth. Some of us, including me, can be angel investors. So if you want to get into farming, we can give you like a $10,000, $20,000 grant to start your farm. So I want to encourage you all. Now, because you're in school, you may have a little time, start a little backyard garden, or if you live in the rural areas and there's government land around, get a little 1 acre land, we plow it for you. You plant some foods, or you can have some broilers, or even have a few layers, lay your own eggs, and sell to your neighbors. That's the kind of collective approach that we want to address our food security. And you and maybe two others from the of the teachers can form yourselves into the committee to select two. I'll give 10,000 apiece.
Lovely.
So this is angel investment at work.
Angel investment.
And you all about crowdfunding and so on, right? You can do a little crowdfunding, go online and start a little crowdfunding operation, get people to contribute to what you're doing. You see, as a society, right, we have to help each other, especially as a small, vulnerable country. And I also want to encourage those who may hear this program, if it is actually aired, that you too, you all have money, share the money, help the young people.
I will go to Shadi, management of business.
Okay, so my question is, what new policies or methods does your administration plan to implement to ensure long-term sustainability and growth for small and micro businesses in Antigua and Barbuda? And how is the government addressing the vulnerability of small businesses to unexpected situations such as natural disasters or global economic downturns such as COVID?
Right. Yeah, so, entrepreneurship is something that we have been encouraging. We would like to see more entrepreneurs. We know all of us can be entrepreneurs, but what we found over the decades is that there are individuals who have migrated here, who have dominated the space. Our people tend to be somewhat risk averse, and I think maybe we have socialized and educated our people primarily to be employees rather than to be entrepreneurs. So my administration, we have been advocating for more of our people, especially of our young people, to get involved in entrepreneurship. And we certainly have the policies to include the tax-free, duty-free policies. Clearly, if you're a farmer, even if you're making $10 million a year, there are no taxes. As I said before, we provide duty-free concessions and tax-free concessions on all inputs. Let's say, for example, you have a simple packaging business. All the material that you require for the packaging, they come in free of all duties and taxes. The capital equipment that you require to produce a service, we also provide duty-free concessions, so you get them free of all the duties and taxes. Let's say, for example, you have to import some office furniture, you have to import even building material to construct a little building. You will get them free of all the duties and taxes. So we're very supportive of entrepreneurship in terms of concessions. And in terms of the funding, we spoke about the Prime Minister's Entrepreneurial Fund that is available. It has millions of dollars to support you. In fact, there's also a grant component. We use a grant component to de-risk investment. So let's say you're pursuing a business and it's $25,000. We can give you a grant of $5,000, $10,000 and loan you $15,000 to help to reduce the risk. And in addition to that, there is a government guarantee scheme in which we guarantee loans from time to time. These are for the larger businesses. There's also the partial credit guarantee scheme, which is operated by the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, in which the bank itself will guarantee loans, and these are for the larger businesses, medium-sized businesses that may borrow up to, let's say, $250 million. They will give a guarantee to de-risk the investment so the bank could feel comfortable to lend the business the money. So I would say that we have a very robust small business incentive infrastructure, even land. We give land as low, or sell land as low as $3 a square foot. Land that typically will be worth at least $10 per square foot. And in many instances, in terms of Airbnb properties, this is a very exciting area for locals, and many locals have been building out these Airbnb properties to the extent that about 35% of the tourists who come to this country, they don't stay in hotels now, they stay in these Airbnb properties within the various communities, and perhaps would have had a very authentic visitor experience by engaging with the locals. We provide waterfront land, beach land at a cheap rate. So typically, if you're getting a piece of beach property anywhere in Antigua, if it's a quarter acre, depending on where, it could be as high as about up to $1.8 million a quarter acre of land. At Jolly Beach right now, Jolly Harbor, where they have a few remaining lots, they've been sold for $1.8 million. So we sell the land for like about maybe 15, 20 EC. We did Pensioners Beach last year. We're currently doing Shell Beach. And there's another parcel of land located at Yaptons that we're now making available to Antiguans and Barbudans at a subsidized price. And the building that you will construct, all the building material, the furnishings, not necessarily the furnishings, but certainly the building material, the fixtures, the fittings, you get them free of all duties and taxes. And in many instances, we also provide duty-free concessions on the furnishings as well for the building. So very, very lucrative because we're trying to have more entrepreneurs. So we go the extra mile to make sure that we incentivize land, buildings, and we give you very low interest rate if you're borrowing, and support, even guarantees. And we provide technical expertise as well. So I hope I answered your question. Thank you.
So we have time just for one more question. I got you already, Bobby, so I'm going to go to the back. Just tell me your name. Sorry? Amaya. Sociology.
Okay, so you've been looking means we had experiment and when that is changing in as my peers and I compare it to the ABCAS, I would like to know what concrete strategies or what programs the government is implementing to grow the economy faster so that we absorb young people that turn in.
So if I get the question correctly, you said youth employment is extremely high in the Caribbean. That is fact. I have to admit that we struggled as well early in our term, but youth unemployment and unemployment generally would have reduced significantly. In fact, in some sectors we have surplus employment. We have surplus employment in home domestic. I'm sure you all see the amount of Filipinos in the country now in low-end jobs in supermarkets. I'm sure you all see the amount of people coming from the Caribbean doing security. Even hotels. Nowadays you can hardly find an Antiguan work in a hotel now. Because they're looking for better opportunities. So the jobs are there. And that is why I made the point earlier that, look, if you leave school and even though you're qualified and you may not get the job that you're looking for, take what is available, develop the habit of working, going to work on time and so on, good discipline, good people skills in terms of how you engage with your coworkers until you get the job that you're looking for or the job that you're qualified to do. I gave a typical case in point that when I left school years ago, right here, this institution, that I went to a hotel to work as a waiter until I got my bank job, and then eventually grew until I became, I'd say, the deputy general manager of the bank, the second, most senior person in the bank until subsequently I transitioned into politics. But in terms of economic growth, you asked what policies we're pursuing. Well, our policies have been working over the last decade. I would have indicated to you that the country's economy has expanded every single year with the exception of COVID. And I also said to you that after COVID, we actually bounced forward, not bounced back, but forward to the extent that the average growth for the last 5 years has been about, I'd say, 6% per annum. And when you have that kind of growth rate, that is robust growth. It doesn't get better than that unless you're in Guyana and you find you have some kind of significant mineral find. So at 6%, even though we have the ambition to get up maybe to 7-8%, I think we've been doing remarkably well. Within the last decade, we've doubled the country's economy. Practically, I think it was about $3.5 billion when we got in, and by the end of this year, we'll be up to $7 billion. So when you have that kind of performance, moving from $3.5 billion a decade ago to $7 billion, doubling, that shows robust growth. That is why last year alone we created over 4,000 jobs. So assuming that we have about maybe 2,000 school leavers, including State College, we're generating currently more jobs than the amount of school leavers. And today unemployment is down. We have been doing constituency polls, and barring one constituency, all of the other constituencies, only about maybe 5-6% of the people say employment is an issue. So we know for sure, even though we haven't done a precise labor survey, based on the questions that were asked, and we have done at least maybe 20 polls, we know that unemployment, and you can see it. You can see the amount of our Caribbean brothers and sisters in particular who continue to migrate here on a monthly basis, daily basis. You know, I visit hotels from time to time, and when I see a new face, I ask them, where you from? I'm from St. Vincent. I'm from Dominica. How long you been here? I recall a few months ago, one of them told me, boy, I just come here last month and I landed the job. So the jobs are there. It's just that Antiguans don't want certain jobs. But again, I'm begging you all, rather than staying home and doing nothing, be a productive citizen. Take what is available until you can get what you need or what you deserve.
And I want to add to that, very specifically, back to the Ministry of Finance and what we're doing now. For the students of business, economics, finance, accounting, we do have in the Ministry of Finance, thinking about the future, who's going to replace us, a public financial management internship program for persons who may have just completed ABCAS, who are studying at UE, and they have classes in the night and you have time. We have a program that we would encourage you to apply for, to come and learn about public financial management, learn about what it takes to be a professional or to have a career in the public sector if that is an interest for you. And even if you don't stay with us, at least some of what you would learn will prepare you for life in the private sector as well.
And every summer we have an internship program. So check us. We take on hundreds of individuals. Well, certainly we'll prioritize ABCAS and even those in the secondary schools as well. So that's an opportunity to introduce you into the workforce. I believe that current employment is about 54,000.
Yes.
So if we have 54,000 people working and we have a population of 100,000, that tells you what's going on there, that is significant employment. At one point, I believe 10 years ago, we probably had fallen to about 37,000 people. So a lot of jobs have been created. And if we continue along the current trajectory, in which we can generate up to 4,000 jobs a year, then clearly we have to continue to allow individuals to come into the country to man those jobs. And there are many people who believe that, you know, people who migrate to the country, that is driven by politics. It's not driven by politics, it's driven by economic opportunities. As you create these jobs, if you don't have the manpower to fill them, then evidently you have to import the labor. Again, another case in point with in construction, we have a shortage of construction workers. And again, you can see the amount of people from the Dominican Republic, even Venezuela and so on, who are working in construction sites. I'm sure at no point in your in your short life on earth so far here in Antigua and Barbuda, you've seen so many red people on construction sites. The government itself, we had to import about 100 skilled workers from the Dominican Republic to help us to construct homes, because what had happened, most of the workers who were working at national housing, they went to the private sector, they went to PLH in Barbuda and so on, where they got more money because PLH pays a premium. So whereas they're making, as a skilled person, $200 a day from national housing, they went to PLH and they were getting $300, $350 a day. So the economy is hot, jobs are being created, and I'll say that your future is secured. Where we really need to focus now is to create higher paying jobs. And this is where you too need to look at opportunities. I just gave our Barbudan friend some ideas as to how they could make monies in property management, pool maintenance and so on. So you have to be skillful enough to look within the society to see where these opportunities are. Even here in Antigua, I would say Antigua and Barbuda today has the most luxury properties per capita of any country within the Caribbean. And many people believe, for example, that growth is driven by, let's say, the construction of large hotels. But what has driven construction in this country are the amount of luxury properties that have been built. If you go to Galloway Heights, Windward Beach in English Harbour, Jumbie Bay, Mill Reef Club, over in Barbuda, just a whole slew of luxury properties. But again, the opportunities to manage them. And this is where we are in Antiguans and Barbudans to control that space. Because if you don't assert yourselves, you know what happens? Foreigners will come here and displace you. So the opportunities are there. Position yourselves now. Again, having not only the technical skills, but the soft skills are important. Learn those skills from now, because you may leave here, you have your associate degree. You go to somebody for a property management job, you show up looking inappropriate, they interview, you know, you're shy, you're timid, you can't utter a proper sentence, boom, you're out, even though you have the skills. So the point that was made earlier about being confident and about, you know, developing proper social skills, good speaking skills, and to present yourself properly. And just understand this simple point, yeah? Nobody's superior to nobody. All of us are practically the same. And some of us may outperform each other in terms of, you know, maybe the skills and our intellectual engagements. But at the end of the day, I think on average we're practically all the same. Maybe once every century you get an Einstein, but you know, Einstein's in the world today. So you should see nobody, no matter their color. If they're white, Arab, whatever, nobody should be superior to you. Whereas you should be respectful of everyone. You should not see anybody as superior when you go and sit down in front of them. Talk to them just how you talk to me. You know, be confident, but be respectful. Don't role play.
I know we are filled, I'm still seeing hands, but we are short on time. We have a country to run.
True.
So I think this is a beautiful opportunity and something that we can even grow bigger in the future. You did mention we can use our open campus AUA, probably
Sure.
a bigger forum that we can invite the whole ABCAS.
That's right.
Kobe, I'm gonna answer next.
You're coming over here. You coming front?
On behalf of the Antigua and Barbuda College of Advanced Studies, the Liberal Arts Department, we'd like to thank you for taking out your time to come and speak with us.
On behalf of everybody in attendance today, on behalf of everybody in attendance today, I'd like to thank you for taking time out of this schedule, especially during this busy election period. So come and speak with us. I'm grateful for the knowledge of the party and understanding the parliament insight and congratulations. Once again, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And he says, this is a